The Empowerment Show aims to equip individuals with the necessary tools, knowledge, and confidence to make informed decisions and take control of their lives. It also focuses on ensuring access to essential resources and the opportunities.
Hey, it's 5 o'clock. Thank you guys for tuning in. We really do. We really, really appreciate having you here coming on this evening. This is the Stevenson and Yates show, which we usually generally talk about politics. So let me bring my man in. He's more or less the analyst, and he has all the answers. So here he is. Boom. Hey, what's happening, brother? How you?
How are you, brother?
I'm good, man. Let me tell you, this weekend, this was a pretty good weekend. This weekend, I got to celebrate my birthday this weekend, and then it was Juneteenth this weekend, and everybody was doing it up, man. I mean, I got an opportunity to throw my wares on. You see, I got
Oh
the
yeah,
chance
oh
to
yeah.
like somebody, and that was pretty cool too. And then I slid down to the Juneteenth festival, and this was at East Stroudsburg in the
Right.
at the university, right? Kenneth Long was there, his wife was there, the daughter was there. Kenneth Long is the first African American president at East Stroudsburg University. So he was there, so that was good to have him there. Let me tell you, your boys were there. Terry and Rudd, they were there. Rudd was doing his little DJ thing, and actually Terry was playing Mr. Security Guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was actually the crowd control, so it was kind of different. He's not the biggest baddest guy in the bunch. He's got a lot of heart, but he's not the biggest baddest dude out there in the bunch. But he held his own. I went
Yeah,
out there.
I wanted to go there, but the weather was a little shaky, and we had some rainstorms that came through.
All right. Well, they were pretty good, man. But to all the brothers and sisters, I want to say thank you guys, whoever showed up for the June test, not just the Juneteenth here in Pennsylvania, but all over the world. We had an opportunity to celebrate our own history. We got an opportunity to talk about our own history as it is in the real life, in the real world, what really before the whitewashing, before the colonialism. We got an opportunity to express ourselves as Africans in America. So I just want to say, what's my man? What's that brother? The Black Panther? You ever check him out? The Black Panther?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Talking
he
about the
always
movie, The
says,
Black Panther?
right. He always says, what's he say? He say, Wakanda
Wakanda
forever.
forever.
Right. Hey, bro. Wakanda
Yeah.
forever. Wakanda forever. So that's how we're gonna do that. All right. I guess it's about time for us to get ready and get up on with this show. So I'm gonna let you roll out first. You had some questions about what was going on with Israel this week. Yeah, they had the bombing. Trump really messed up with that. He kind of did because I think he mainly he wanted to have a what do you call it, a ceasefire, and it didn't work out too well. That didn't work out too well for him at all. Yeah. Did
Well,
you see him get on the plane? He was cursing. I never heard the president curse. And he was
well,
cursing.
you're gonna hear a lot of that from Trump.
Mm,
But now, as it relates to this conflict in what's called the Middle East between Iran, Israel, and now the United States, I think it's important for people to understand the way this conflict is being framed. We know that Israel launched a preemptive strike on the country of Iran. There's no debating that. Israel admitted they did it. They said they wanted to take out their nuclear capabilities. Well, first of all, we don't know if Iran has nuclear capabilities in
mhm.
terms of, producing a bomb. That's number one. Number two, after this attack, Israel immediately called in us, the United States, to say, look, we've launched an attack and now we need you to come and do some fighting for us because we certainly can't win this conflict on our own. Now,
Mhm.
people in this country, we view this conflict through the lens of the oppressor and not through the the perspective of the oppressed. If
Mm-hmm.
you're an oppressed person or have been an oppressed person, then you can kind of understand the Iranian position. Now, last week we talked about, we're going back to the genesis of this conflict, and it goes back decades. It goes back to the 1950s. During that time, the UK had basically control of the entire region known as the Middle East.
Right.
And of course, it had control of Iran. Well, Iran elected a prime minister by the name of Mohammad Mossadegh. And he looked at the situation, the financial situation between Iran and Great Britain. Most of the money from Iran's oil wealth was going to Great Britain. People in Iran did not have basic services, did not have food, right? So he said, look, I understand that, British Petroleum is the one that is extracting oil, but this situation, or this, I guess, deal we have should be fair to us as well. It is our land, it is our oil. Well, he tried to negotiate with British Petroleum. And of course, the oppressor never negotiates with the oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of what I think it was Frederick Douglass said, that power concedes nothing without a demand.
That's right.
And so, of course, no negotiation. So he took it to the UN and said, look, we need your assistance in negotiating a fair deal between my country and the UK. Well, of course, the UN offered no real results, really. No way, no help for them, should I say.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he then nationalized the oil fields. Once that happened, now this is British Petroleum, right? Well, somehow the US inserted themselves into this conflict and decided, well, we're going to be the ones to take down the Iranian leader. And during that time, the CIA, which
Who
had
was the Iranian leader at that time?
Mohammad Mossadegh.
Okay.
He was the prime minister.
Right.
At that time, the CIA had not yet overthrown a government. So they went and got, I believe it was the grandson of Teddy Roosevelt. And he decided he was going to go over to Iran and he was going to foment a coup, which led to the overthrow of Mohammad Mossadegh.
Mm.
And of course, once that happened, the United States and Great Britain put in power a man by the name of Reza Pahlavi, otherwise known as the Shah of Iran, a brutal dictator who allowed the United States and Great Britain to extract as much oil as they wanted, to not give anything back to the Iranian people in terms of building the country's infrastructure.
I wonder how much they got paid. How much did they get paid? Because he got put in there probably through the CIA.
Well, yeah, the CIA and probably MI6, MI5.
Right.
In fact, the Shah was not even in Iran when this was taking place. He was here in this country. He was sent back and he was handed the keys as long as he was willing to play ball with the former colonial powers. So that's kind of how we got to where we are today. We all know about the taking of the American hostages at the end of the Carter administration. Well,
I remember that.
Yeah, and they held Americans. They seized the embassy in Tehran, and they held it for 444 days. So that's kind of how we got to where we are today. This was not something that Iran was the aggressor. It was not. And Iran was not the aggressor in this case.
No.
It is Israel that launched a strike on them saying, well, you know what? They're not allowed to have nuclear weapons. But who is it? Who is Israel to say
Say,
that they
right,
don't.
right. Who's Israel or anyone else to say that? I mean, if I'm a United States, okay, fine. If I protected my country, I should be able to protect it any way I feel to. If I have the nuclear arms capability, then I'm gonna have the nuclear arms capability like everyone else. And what other country has a right to come along and tell me what I can and cannot have?
Well, you know what it is. America and the former colonial powers have placed Israel in a position where they basically are the preeminent military power in that region called the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Israel has the best of the best in terms of um, surveillance equipment, military hardware, and funding. Now, here's what's interesting. Well, over a week ago, Israel launched a preemptive strike on Iran. Dangerous by, any interpretation. This is a dangerous move.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that. We showed the bombs
Right.
bursting in air, as they would say. We talked about that, right? I remember that.
Well, then after that, the U.S. gets involved. What is the benefit for the U.S. to get involved in this conflict? There really is none.
See, this is what I don't understand. If Israel's got all this high technology, they're the best at this, they're the best at that, then why do they need the U.S. to go in and bomb anything?
Well, to be quite frank, Iran is a rather large country compared to Israel. Iran has I guess, some of the better military hardware in the region. And they have a large standing military as well. So for Israel to say they're going to defeat Iran alone is not something I don't think Netanyahu would even consider. If the United States were not backing Iran, certainly this attack would never happen. And what I found interesting is, since the American strike the other day, have you noticed there has been no real statement from the UK, no real statement from France or Germany regarding the bombing of Iran by American aircraft? Why are they so quiet? I think that, well, I should say I know. France, England, Germany quietly support what's going on.
How about that?
Oh yeah, they'll make some statements against Israel and their treatment of the Palestinians, right? But in terms of doing things like cutting off trade with Israel, they haven't done that. People have talked about, boycotts. The major colonial powers haven't done that.
Like the people in Israel, the people that live there, the folks that live there, that walk on the ground every day, they don't want this war. They don't want to go to war. The people here that you and I, the folks here in the United States, we didn't agree to that. And here it is. If he drops those bombs, is that not an act of war?
It is.
So didn't he need Congress approval to do that? Isn't that against the law to go to circumvent the Congress to do that? I mean, Vietnam was never considered a war because Congress never approved it as to being a war. But here it is. He drops bombs, boom, 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 and you don't need the act of Congress to do that.
Well, yes and no. Under the War Powers Act, the president has the right to send in troops. He has 60 days. After that, he needs congressional approval. That's why all of these strikes, not just him, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, Clinton, Obama, and now Trump. They do these bombing runs because it doesn't really necessarily require congressional approval. Should you make Congress aware of such a strike? Well, absolutely. Simply because if the country you bomb strikes back and Americans are hurt or killed, and now this conflict widens and you have to send in troops, Congress needs to be made aware of that to decide if they want to approve this or not.
Now, since you brought that up, do you think that we're going to have some sort of retaliation from Iran? I mean, on American soil?
Um, I just saw something on Fox News. Fox News is nothing but fear mongers anyway. They was talking about Biden's border and how it was wide open, so that somehow Biden would have known, a year or 2 years ago that this action would be taken in Iran and that Iranians would be pouring out of Iran and coming across the southern border. It's no more than fear mongering and a deflection from what's actually happening. Do I expect there to be some retaliation in this country? I don't think so. I think that their major focus is Israel. And I think that Iran is trying to reach out to other Arab nations to get their support in their ongoing battle with Israel. Now, just the other day, they talked about a ceasefire. Who benefits from the ceasefire?
I imagine Israel.
Israel, most certainly.
And America, too.
Yes, but more so Israel. Israel has been taking a beating. The Iranians are in possession of hypersonic missiles that travel faster than Israel's Iron Dome system is able to intercept those missiles. So Israel has been taking a beating. Of course, the corporate media in America will not show you this. Well, they'll show you bomb damage.
Yeah, I think they talked about one missile or something that got through.
Right, but there have been more than one. There have been several missiles that got through the Iron Dome system and have landed in places like Tel Aviv. So for Benjamin Netanyahu, that puts him in a very tough position. You took the country into what you call a war, which is actually a genocide against the Palestinians. You say you were fighting Hamas. 58,000 Palestinians killed, and now you won't even provide them with aid, things like the necessities, food, water. Then you decide you're going to attack in Iran, a country much larger, a country with well-equipped military. You decide you're going to attack them in a preemptive strike. Iran has been fighting back, and some of these bombs have found their way home and have struck major cities within Israel. So for Benjamin Netanyahu, he needs the bombing to stop right away. Because for Netanyahu, his political future is kind of up in the air. All of the hostages have not been turned over or turned back over to the Israelis. And the other thing is, Benjamin Netanyahu has some ongoing political scandals, things that he's facing trial for. So he, like Trump, has to stay in power. But if bombs are falling on Israeli cities, it's going to be a very difficult run for him.
Well, I don't know about bombs falling on Israeli cities. I don't think they really have the capability to do it, especially since we took all out there. But the uranium, is that what the uranium plants? Is that what we blew? We went over there and we blew that up.
Well, you know what? That's what Trump said. Trump said we obliterated these sites like Fordo and the Natanz, where they were producing nuclear fuel. However, other people, even the vice president and the secretary of defense, are saying something very, very different. They're saying we need to assess the damage. So, did these bombs hit these sites with accuracy? Are these sites, as they say, obliterated? Or is Iran able to very quickly restart this program and, enrich fuel?
Here's a couple of things. So, not to bring back the past, but back in the day, Obama, we did have a deal with Iran, and then Trump came along and knocked that off the table. So I kind of think that's a little bit why we're in this mess that we're in now. And as far as the Secretary of Defense, Trump told him he didn't know what the hell he was talking about.
Well, he doesn't. He doesn't. Simple as that. This man is way in over his head, as most of the members of the Trump administration are. Trump's cabinet, we're dealing with you know, a clown show, right?
Oh, please.
But
I've been watching some stuff on here. I've been watching these congressional. I guess you want to. They're not really hearings, but they actually sit down. What's the woman? Linda McMahon, right?
yes, education
Right.
secretary.
Okay. I'm telling you, man, these people are fools.
Mm-hmm.
This cat was Sutton. He's in charge of HUD. Says he wants to take 51% of the money away from HUD, but he can't explain why.
Right.
Or where the money is going.
Well,
The woman, the Secretary of Education, I'm telling you, she should go to wrestling and stay over there because she may be able to do that really well. But when it comes to
didn't do that so
education,
well.
they put her in a box.
Either.
I listen to these people, and they put her in a box that she can't get out. I mean, she got so frustrated and angry because they wanted her to answer the questions yes or no, but she wanted to give, do what do they call it, the spin answer.
Right.
And it wasn't working.
Well, you know something? When you talk about these people wanting, like the HUD secretary wanting to cut from HUD, and he says he doesn't know why. He knows why. He won't tell the reason why. And the reason why is Trump promised this $4 trillion tax cut to the wealthiest Americans. So how do you find that money to pay for these tax cuts? So you cut things like Medicaid, you cut things like Medicare, you cut things like SNAP programs, you cut basic staples like milk from school lunches, you cut the educational budget, you cut funding for housing, as in the case of HUD. All of this to make sure that the top 1% of this country, these billionaires, get a tax cut. Nothing to do with average working class people, because over time, it'll actually be a tax increase for us.
Yeah.
So, which puts us in a worse situation economically, because to carry out a bombing run, that's costly. The amount of aircraft that we use, I mean, we're talking B-2 bombers, we're talking escort planes, we're talking moving carriers into place, we're talking refueling jets. All of these.
You're talking a couple of $1 billion, bro.
This is expensive, right? And we're doing this at the same time while our workforce is shrinking. Trump said, listen, we're not going to go after people who work on farms because somebody's got to harvest the food and bring it to our table. He said, we're not going to go after people who work in the hotel industry and hospitality industry. Well, the other day, all that has changed. So now ICE is going after people who work on farms, going after people who work in hotels.
They're going to churches, they're going to schools, they're going to movie theaters. Anywhere that they think people are, that's where they're going after them. Now we talk about the budget, or you talk about the high budget. My man had a parade. How much did that parade cost that nobody or very little people showed up for? How much money did that cost? I mean, we talk about fraud, waste, and abuse. Is that not an abuse of power?
Absolutely it is. And I think the estimates were like $45 million, right? That's just the estimates. It's probably a lot higher than that.
It was almost up to 100 million.
Probably, right? Because we'll never know the actual cost, right? And this was supposedly for the army, but no, this was actually for Trump. He'd been talking about this since his first administration, when he wanted to have a military parade. And the Joint Chief at the time, General Miley, said, no, we can't do that. We don't do that in America. Well, now Trump has somebody like Pete Hegseth, who can't figure out how to send top secret messages, without putting it on full display for people using an unsecured website. The man is a complete moron, right? But that is what Trump wants, because no one is going to challenge him or his decision-making process. There was no reason for the U.S. to bomb in Iran.
No.
Iran poses no imminent threat or even an immediate threat to this country.
Mm-hmm.
No one has said that Iran has a nuclear weapon capable of reaching this country.
Mm. They've been
Even
saying that for
from
the last 25 years. I'm going to tell you, 25 years or more that I've been hearing this same story. Now, when I start to hear it, I start to hear that what did my man said about mass destruction? What we have weapons of mass destruction, so we got to go in there and take them out. And that's what
And
I
you know
hear.
something? I was just going to bring that up. See, this movie has played before. This is
Mm-hmm.
exactly what happened in 2003 when Israel, again, Israel's basically setting policy for the region. Israel wanted a change of power, or as we like to say in this country, regime change in Iraq. Now, this is supposed to be because of the attack on the Twin Towers. What did Saddam Hussein have to do with that? Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
We talked about Osama bin Laden, then all of a sudden, the focus shifted onto Saddam Hussein, who was an ally of the United States for years,
Mm-hmm.
who went to war with his Muslim brothers in Iran at the behest of the United States and Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for us, that war was very, very costly. It cost the budget, the domestic budget went up $1.4 trillion. Gas prices went up. Soldiers came back from the war and had to wait for treatment at veterans facilities. And
Still
while we're
do.
talking about veterans facilities, Trump is actually cutting the budget for
That's
veterans,
right. That's right.
right? So
Cutting the
you want
budget for
people to
veterans.
go and fight. You want
Mm-hmm.
people to go off and fight.
No.
And when
What
they
he
come
wants,
back,
you know, this is what he calls soldiers. Like me, he calls soldiers. We're suckers.
right? People who actually go off and fight for this country.
That's right.
It's just amazing to me how people, the so-called patriotic people, have never stood a post, have never raised their right hand and swore
Never.
to defend and protect the Constitution, have never joined the military, but they're the patriotic ones. And they're the ones who are going to say, well, America should go and bomb. They also know that their children will never be on the front line.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody named Trump. If this war were to, say, escalate suddenly and America had to put boots on the ground, no one by the name Trump will be there. No one by the name Hexas will be there. You know, they said there's a saying that old men start wars for young men to fight. And that's
Right.
exactly what happened, you know, in this country.
See what I say? You take all them old cats, the presidents, the prime ministers, if they got a beef with each other, put them in a little ring and let them duke it out. Instead of all these millions of people that died during wars. All right, think about it. On both sides, millions of people die for their leaders' cause.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we fight for, and most of the time we're lied to. You think about the last war. What was the war? We went over there and we were supposed to be fighting for our freedoms. Like when they told us when we went in, you were fighting for God and country. Come to find out, we were fighting for oil. That's what we were doing. We were going over there
Absolutely.
to take these people's oil. And our country was using the soldiers, our soldiers, not to protect our country, but to go over there like hoodlums and to take what we wanted to take.
And you know, that's why I said at the outset, we view this conflict or these conflicts from the perspective of the oppressed, of the oppressor rather, and not the oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
We always see America's actions abroad as being for a righteous purpose. And if you understand the history of these conflicts, you know there is no righteous purpose. And, you know, going back to the first Gulf War, George Bush knew that there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. He knew it because the United Nations Special Committee or Council and the International Atomic Energy Agency were constantly inspecting in Iraq, looking for weapons of mass destruction. They never found any.
You know why he went there?
No.
Because his daddy didn't get him. That's why he went there. His
Well,
daddy
you
didn't
know
get him,
what?
so he went back to make sure he got him.
I think that this was Israel. I think this was Israel that was behind this. I think that in order to get America into this fight, I think that Israel, I'm going to say something that a lot of people may not agree with, but I think that Israel had more to do with the events of 9/11 than any person of Arab descent. I think, I truly believe that this was homegrown terrorism in order not just to get our elected officials behind this war, but to get the American people. And once America was attacked, how many people went up, jumped up, men, women, jumped up and joined the military to defend this nation because they completely believed the story that we were under attack and that there were terrorist cells everywhere, and that there were terrorists lurking around every corner. That was a lie from day one.
We've been used. That's all, man. We have been used and abused and put away wet. That's what we are, man. We don't mean anything to these people. We're just a pawn. We're just a means to whatever they feel that they're trying to reach out and grab. Some money, some power, some land, whatever it is these people, these 1%ers want. They don't look at us as people. They look at us as like a means to get what they want.
Cannon fodder. Years ago, if you go back in European history, the king would always lead the troops into battle. At some point, they said, wait a minute, what am I doing out here? I'm too valuable. I'll send them out, but I'll stay back home. So since that time, right, even if you think in terms of our political leaders in this country, when was the last time we had, say, a decorated general elected to the presidency? I think the last
person.
I think the last one was Eisenhower, correct?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I thought it was Wilson, Woodrow Wilson. I thought he was a military guy, but
no, I don't think Wilson was in the military at all.
No?
But I think the last person we had that was a decorated military man was Eisenhower, and that was in the 50s, right? Since then, it has been basically civilian control. Civilians who don't know the realities of war. They'll send your kids off to war because they've never experienced it. Somebody who's been there, who's been in the trenches, would probably hesitate to send off America's sons and daughters because they know what it's like. They've experienced it firsthand. Trump, on the other hand, well, he had bone spurs that kept him out of Vietnam.
Right, brother, look, I already talked about this man with his bone spurs, but I tell you know what I said? It's in his DNA. His granddaddy was a draft dodger in Germany, right? His daddy, which is born in Germany, came here, but he was affiliated with the Ku Klux Klan, so that's where the white supremacy comes from. Trump, first generation here, so he's a migrant.
Well, I think Trump's father was born here.
No, he was born in Germany, or not Germany. I
well,
think maybe
the grandfather came from Germany. The grandfather came from Germany and went to Canada. They ran brothels in Canada,
right.
And then they came to this country and got into real estate. So I think Fred Trump was born here, as was his children. Now Trump's mother was Irish, right? She, I think, was first generation Irish in this country, right? But it's just mind-boggling that we in this country cannot see clearly what's happening, right? This is not about Iran posing a threat to Israel or to stability in the region. This is about Israel taking more Arab land. That is the long-term goal. These wars, these little wars, is to silence all opposition. Iran was opposition. If Iran is taken out, what's to stop Israel from taking Syria? from
I
taking
just had a
land.
thought. I had a thought. We're at the end of our time, but I just had a thought, right? So just imagine if you and I, if we were back, I guess, 1400s, whenever they first came into this country, and we sat down and we had to report what was going on, what the British were doing, what the Pilgrims were doing, how they came into this land and they were welcome in this land when they got here, and then how they wanted to stretch out and take more land and then take more land and grow bigger and bigger. And they had all these big wars to do
Hmm.
what? To take more land. And this
Hmm.
sound familiar? Sounds like
Well,
history repeating itself.
and that's what it is. See, in this country, we called it manifest destiny, right? And this westward expansion slaughtered the indigenous people from the East Coast straight across to the West Coast. And
Mhm.
Israel is doing the same thing. And if you look at some of these other countries in Europe, Romania, and a few others, they're also looking to grab more land because everybody's looking for more resources.
Did you know, speaking about that, so when in the United States, when they started forming the United States, California and Texas were actually a part of Mexico.
There were
So
actually 6 Western states that were part of Mexico. There
right.
was Arizona, California, Colorado, New Mexico, Nevada, Texas, and Arizona, right?
Well,
So
the way they got California is they only paid $15 million to buy the state of California. And this was after first they wanted to buy it, they put like 20 million on the table. And the Mexicans said no. So America, of course, they were the bigger, badder force. They came in and they were gonna take it over. And the Mexicans ended up selling it for $15 million.
there's 2 things that I'll say about that. So California, one, the name California comes from a black woman, Queen Calafia.
Okay.
One of the Spanish explorers, I believe it was Pizarro, came to this hemisphere in search of a mythological black Amazonian queen named Queen Calafia. So he named this what will become the state of California after her and called it California. Now, as it relates to America and the Spanish or the Mexicans, we know the story of the Alamo. At least we know the story that was taught to us.
Mhm.
Nobody's ever told us exactly why Santa Anna marched all this way to attack the Alamo.
Mm,
The real reason is Mexico had outlawed slavery.
that's
Well, the
right.
so-called heroes of the Alamo, Sam Houston, Daniel Boone, and others, were actually running slaves in and out of Texas. They wanted to take Texas and create not a state, but a country, the Republic of Texas. Santa Anna came up to enforce the Mexican Constitution, which outlawed slavery.
Mm.
So these heroes of the Alamo were no more than slave runners.
The most American heroes in that time, man. What we call American heroes. Come on, man. Look, what do they call it? Mount Rushmore and all. Look at those people. Come on, they owned slaves, man.
Mhm,
Slavery was a means of making money here. It was slavery. What did it? We were just a commodity.
mhm,
That's all. And we, we
mhm.
we we were a commodity of some evil people who
Well,
were just to corrupt. It came about with money. It came about with hatred. The rich people made the poor people hate the black people so that they can make more money. Like we just talked about, you got to get the American people on board. So that's kind of
mhm.
what they did. They got the American people on board by coming out with all the different stereotypes and to make them hate us. So once they got a chance to hate us, it was easy for those in power to go ahead and abuse us, to come out and make all these different laws. That even the laws that we go by today. Well, listen, I wanted to ask you. That's Muhammad Ali, right?
It is.
Above your head.
That's Muhammad Ali. Yes, that's. I got that picture a number of years ago. That is
Mm-hmm.
Muhammad Ali in training.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have another one of Sugar Ray Robinson, also in training. I've collected some sports memorabilia to my left over here. You won't be able to see, it's not on camera. I
Mm-hmm.
have a poster signed by the Knicks the last time they won the championship in
Okay.
1973.
1973.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
man.
have that poster, and I'm just waiting for them to win another championship.
I was a teenager.
Yeah, I wasn't even a teenager yet. I was in
This picture
elementary
laugh.
school.
I only asked about the picture because I'm looking at this picture and I'm looking right over here, and it says Muhammad Ali versus Sonny Liston in May 25th, 1965.
I have that picture also where he's standing over Sonny Liston.
Yeah, when he's standing,
Yeah,
and I look. I said, "Look at this guy. He's got the picture up there."
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So we're gonna pick this up next week.
Okay.
Well, maybe we could top it off for the. You know what? I'm gonna tell you what. I might even give you a shout out on Friday, man. So this way we could sum up for the rest of the week of what took place for the week. Because we come in the middle of the week, we come in with last week's information or over the weekend information, and if we come in at the end of the week too, then we could sum up the entirety what took place for the week, and we can give that to the viewing audience.
Okay. That'll work.
So since it was Juneteenth, I'm gonna say I got to do the thing. Wakanda forever. And for us, my Wakanda right now, that would be Burkina Faso.
Ah, yes.
That would be my Wakanda right then and there. Did you see they made the blueprints of the future city?
Yes.
Spending billions of dollars to make this futuristic city. This man is spending so much money, and they'll ask him, "Well, where did you get the money from?" Well, we're back. We got more gold than anybody in the entire world.
We never asked France, where did you get the money? We never asked England, where did you get the money? We never asked America, where did you get the money? We never asked any of the colonial powers, where do you get the money? So how the hell do you have the nerve to ask the people who have all the resources, where did you get the money?
Africa, that's always been around the world, that's been the ATM. So when other people want to make money or they want to get money, they go right over to the African ATM, they make their withdrawal, and when they leave, they take all the money, but they don't leave anything. And what they do give back to the people is nothing. It's nothing.
I'll tell you something, right? A lot of people in Africa, a lot of these African nations now are quickly waking up, and they're building ties because they recognize the fact the Europeans are fighting each other, right? The target isn't necessarily mainland Africa, right? The target now is places like Iran. And for Israel to think that they're going to walk away from this and that there won't be any further retaliation from the Arab world, that will be a mistake on their part. Because the Arab world is tired of the images they see of Palestinian children blown to bits, Palestinian women, small children who had nothing to do with Hamas being slaughtered. In fact, most of the people Israel is killing, women and children. Israel is bombing away,
shot in the head,
in the refugee camps. And for what? So Israel,
you know what it's for? They want so they can move on in. So they can say we're moving on up. They want to move right on up into Gaza and take it all. Take the entire strip.
So does Donald Trump. He said he wants to turn it into the Mediterranean he wants to turn it into a resort. Right.
Luxury hotels.
Mediterranean, Gaza in the Mediterranean. Well, he thinks that he and Netanyahu are going to just divide this place up.
No,
it's not going to go down like that.
No, I already seen Netanyahu.
Not going to allow it to happen.
He doesn't listen to Trump or anything. Trump thinks that he got them wrapped around his finger. He's got the power. He's the man with all the Jews. He's the deal maker, right? Them people look at him like he's a fool.
Well, that's why he left the G7. Because the leaders of the G7 were laughing at him like, you idiot. What are you doing to improve not just the U.S. economy, but the global economy? These tariffs are hurting all of us. And yet you want to come here and talk about making deals? Go somewhere and sit down. So he decided to leave, to come back and make it seem like it was so important that he get back here to go to the briefing room to discuss this attack on Iran.
Yeah,
the president has the ability on Air Force One at any time to have a high level briefing. You don't need to be in Washington.
No, he could have been in the hotel room where he was at, brother, and had a high briefing. With
Anyway,
all
could
the
have been
technology we have today, just like you and I sitting here, I'm
that.
sure that they could have made a secure line that you could sat and they could have had everybody in one room in one place, and I could be somewhere else, or the president could be somewhere else, and then they can make their communication. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely happens every day.
Mm-hmm.
But, we're dealing with a man whose ego is so fragile, right? See, his concern is not that when you talk about bombing, right? You have to understand something. When you drop bombs on people and you say you're destroying a facility, you're also killing people. There are people in that facility. There are people surrounding that facility. People are dying. That's not his concern. His concern is, how do I look? How does it make me look? Right? Is it favorable? And, let's be realistic. A lot of people in this country, and I'm talking about his MAGA base, is divided over this. Trump said we don't need to be involved in these foreign wars. We need to stay out of them. Why should we bleed for another country? Well, now you throw it out the window.
And see, there we go with the voters' remorse. And I'm going to tell you, I really want to see what we're going to do next time around. If we happen to make it through without a war, because I understand that if there's a war, I may be wrong. If there's a war, the president can say, "Hey, we can't have a voting right now. We can't. If it's election time and it's during a war, he can stop the election."
You know what? Even during World War I and World War II, we had elections, right? Vietnam, we've always had the election. That's not what I'm thinking Trump will do. What I'm thinking is Trump is going to use these protests as his rationale for having martial law. He's already moved Marines into Los Angeles.
700.
You cannot do that. That violates the Posse Comitatus Act. You cannot do it. But
not
he's
on American soil.
Exactly.
That's right.
Not on American soil. To carry out police functions.
Now I'm wondering, I heard one of the generals the other day said that we're not here to pay homage, or we're not here to listen to a king. And he went down the whole list, said we're here to uphold the Constitution. My point is, if the president gives you an unlawful order, do those soldiers have to carry it out?
No. We were both in the military, right? If someone gives you an unlawful order, you do not have to carry it out, period, right? Because let's be realistic. A lot of these orders will never be in writing. This is what you will be told. And then later on, if you carry it out and you say, well, wait a minute, I was ordered to. Well, where's the order?
Where's the order?
Where's the written order that said you were supposed to bomb this location? You get screwed. The people who gave the order will claim they don't know anything about it.
Hey, here's another one. What about the 2,000 National Guardsmen he sent out there to California? These guys didn't have a place to stay, so he sent them out there with no bedding, no place to stay. I don't know, even if you slept in the wood, we could set up pup tents or whatever. But they gave him no lodging whatsoever. And these guys, yeah, they're soldiers, but we both been in the military, right? So a guy doing it a couple times a month, he kind of sort of a soldier, even more than us to me, like militia. How could it be any more, any equivalent to a soldier that does it every day? Okay, so he's sending these guys out there that are pretty much still with the civilian mind. They're giving them no lodging. They're giving them no food.
Which is a clear example of what I said about Pete Hegseth, right? He knows nothing about running. He couldn't even run a not-for-profit agency. Now you give him control of the Department of Defense. Probably the largest portion of the U.S. budget goes toward defense. And you put this moron in charge of that, someone who doesn't think that if I'm going to send in troops, I have to have logistics set up, like places to stay. I have to have food, fuel, all of these things that are necessary. But if you're a moron and you can't run a not-for-profit, how the hell do you run a military the size of the United States?
He can't run it. He's too busy. Now, this is my own opinion. He's too busy with the sauce and maybe with some other things. Because I watched this guy on television, man, and if I was a cop, I may be pulling him over.
Well, yeah. I mean, of course, right? I mean that's just part of it, right? The
Mm-hmm.
fact is that when you join the military, you and I both know you raise your right hand and you swear to support and defend the Constitution.
The Constitution.
Politicians take that same oath. However, it is clear that their oath now or their allegiance is to Donald Trump. To hell with the Constitution, to hell with their constituency. It's all about Donald Trump. And where's he going to lead them to?
Straight to hell.
He's going to lead them where he led all of his businesses to. Not a
Straight to hell.
single business to survive the Trump plan, the Trump business plan. And America, now we've let this failed businessman in charge of what was once the world's largest economy, arguably the world's largest military, and this guy is in charge. This guy shouldn't be in charge of a dogfight, even if he could win.
He probably manipulate the dogfight. One more thing. I just had it on mine. Now you made me lose my train of thought. I wanted to talk about something real quick, but I guess we're gonna have to pick it up on the other side when I bring it back up. All right, brother Yates. As a pleasure. It's always good to hang out with you. And again, I think maybe
it's always a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah. We're gonna do that thing that we were talking about, man. I've been looking into it. So you and I, we got to come together so we can go back to back and we can do the photo, because I already got the people that's gonna make it up and we, not to monetize it, but again, like I said, I always want to show my appreciation. I'm always glad.
No, brother, I get it, and when you're ready, just let me know. I'll make myself ready.
All right, cool.
I'll make myself available. Yeah.
I think you're gonna love wearing it.
Oh yeah.
All right, so Kendall Stevenson, this is, I'm gonna say, the Stevenson and Yates show. How about that? I think I kind of like that. Just Stevenson and Yates. Yeah, that's got a really nice ring to it. So that's the way we're going to go. And on this show, we talk about politics. We talk about what's going on around the world. So you guys want to stay tuned, listen in, push the subscriber button, and chime in. If you have something to say, you got just leave us a comment. I'm sure we'd be glad to discuss it with you, because most of the time we just talk amongst ourselves, and sometimes that's based on opinion, based on fact, a little bit of both. So we like to hear from the viewing audience to see what you guys have to think about it, what you guys think about it, and what you have to say. All right, so I'm Kendall Stevenson. This is Brother Ron Yates, and as always, I got to be myself because everybody else is taken. And my brother Ron, there was a brother. Let me tell you, there was a brother. You ever heard of Joe Madison?
Absolutely.
So this is what Joe Madison. This is what you right. This is why you remind me so much, because you put it where the ghost can get it.
Yeah, I remember the Black Eagle.
Right on, right on. I got to get me a change jar just for that little swear jar every time I feel like I want to say a curse, and I feel like I can do it legally and take that money and I'll take the money from the change jar as I build it up, and I'll donate it. Maybe I'll donate it to the NAACP or one of my favorite is the American Cancer Society.
There you go.
Yeah, I think we'll do that. I think I put a little jar here, brother, and each week I throw a little something in there. I make sure I say something out the way, because that's easy for me to do, right?
Right.
and I throw a little change in there just so that we can help out and support the rest of the community, because that's what
there you go, brother.
That's right. We're here for the community. And to Tara Probst, keep on doing what you're doing. I'm so glad I live in Pennsylvania and I got a woman like that's up there in Harrisburg doing her thing. She's fighting the good fight. I can tell you that now. She's definitely fighting a good fight. So I'm glad we got we live in Pennsylvania. Glad we got the governor that we got. This way they're not going to mess around with us too tough when it comes to things like Medicare and Social Security or even education. They're going to try. But Josh Shapiro, he's a fighter. He's not trying to let it happen. And stupid people with their stupid stuff. What did they say? We're going to give the power back to the states. Okay, well, the state took the power, and this state is doing the right thing with it. As you see, last weekend, what did we celebrate? Juneteenth. Mm-hmm. As a what? As a national holiday, at least for a state. Now, what did he say? Trump? He said, you can't have that anymore. That's out. Anything written by Martin Luther King, that's out. Anything written by James Baldwin, that's out. kills me. I had asked a woman the other day, I said, so is the Holocaust DEI? And she says, no. I said, so how could slavery or anything like that be considered DEI? It would, to me, they're both the same, right? The Holocaust, slavery. So why is it okay to teach about one and not okay to teach about the other?
Well, our president, clearly, this man has a great deal of racial bias, racial hatred, right? And it's clear. I mean, you just deleted people, right? Tuskegee Airmen, delete them from the annals of history, right? Jackie Robinson, somehow he got taken off. Only people that look like you or I were removed from this list. Then you say people that look like you or I have to leave this country, right? We have ICE doing these roundups. This is modern day slave catching, right? Yet you bring in white South African farmers. It's clear what this man is doing. It can't be any clearer.
Did you see what he did with the bases? The army bases? He brought back the old Confederate name?
Back under the old Confederate names.
Gee, come on, man.
Well, this is what I mean.
The Confederacy lost the war.
He's making it perfectly clear, right? What is in his heart.
It's all about white. It's all about the white. It's all about the mighty righteous, the mighty whitey righteous. That's what it's all about. And it's all about showing who's got the power. That's what he's showing. I got the power. So this is what I'm going to do. I don't care if it pisses you off. I don't care if it's right, wrong, or indifferent. This is what I'm going to do. All right. It's time for me to eat dinner, brother. I'm sure your stomach is growling.
I hear you, brother. We will pick it up again.
You look pretty good, man. I tell you, man. I can't wait to come down and hang out with you sometime because you look so good, brother. I got to tell you how good you look, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I want to grow up and be like you, brother.
Aha! I wish you luck. All right, black man.
All right, brother. Your peace. Peace to the viewers.
Wakanda forever. Peace.
All right, brother. Peace.